Hello, one and all. My name is Glazed, and today I want to talk about something in a nice, casual, unedited, incoherent, and quick setting, instead of the usual structured way. Who wants structure? That's overrated. So I stand here before you to deliver a disastrous, incoherent ramble, and what a better pair of games to start with than the Insomniac Studio Spider-Man games. How can anyone hate Spider-Man? I mean, he's been around since the Dark Ages, and it's impossible to hate that broke-ass NYC web-slinging nerd. Everyone and their mom loves the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, some dweebs like the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man movies, and some mouth-breathing, cave-dwelling degenerate losers with no critical thinking skills like the Tom Holland something-something home Spider-Man movies. Regardless of their quality, the movies have always made an ungodly amount of money, so naturally there have been video games to capitalize on the power of the friendly neighborhood wall crawler. Most of them suck, and that's not what I'm here to talk about. We're here to talk about the phenomenal Spider-Man PS4 game and the deeply disappointing 2020 Miles Morales game. Here's the thing. The story doesn't really matter in either of these games. You do Spider-Man things, like swinging through New York at 1,000 miles an hour, punching criminals and supervillains in the face, and having severe relationship problems because your romantic abilities are about as smooth as a pile of broken glass. In terms of being a game, this one's fantastic. I love the web swinging in this game. The combat is basic but good, and most of the side content is fun, but some of it kinda sucks ass. I don't like the overwhelming amount of random crimes you have to do in each district because they're so time consuming and annoying. Because I don't want to swing around the same district for like 30 to 45 minutes trying to get all 5 required crimes in all 4 types. Most districts being a total of 20 random crimes really makes completing this a nightmare, which is completely random which ones spawn, which means you'll probably get a lot of repeats before you get the crimes you need. Everything else is kinda cool though. The bases are somewhat fun because I like the stealth sections, but once you get past the initial wave of enemies, it becomes the standard punch and dodge affair, and it gets pretty grindy as it goes on. Past that, all of the other collectibles are pretty cool. The backpacks are easy to find, you do some photography of famous landscapes marked on your map, you do some photography of secret locations that aren't on your map, you try and hunt down Black Cat as you pick up clues she's left behind and some other stuff I can't be bothered to remember, but you get the point. It's all normal standard stuff, except for the fact that the reward for getting all of the collectibles in a category is a unique Spider-Man suit. These suits are truly the best collectible in the game, and there's a good reason that the completion bonus for the game is a very special suit. For 100% doing everything, all collectibles, all side content, all of that stuff, you get the Undies suit, which is exactly what you think it is. You ditch the suit for a pair of boxer shorts and just keep the mask, and that's it. That's all. That's everything you ever could have wanted and more. You can't lie to me. Just look at it. It's the greatest thing in the game, and it makes New Game Plus even funnier. Moving on, I'd be missing something if I didn't mention a crucial part of being Spider-Man, which is failing your way through romance with Mary Jane Watson. I won't lie to you, Peter is about as smooth as a mountain of sandpaper, and it's pretty endearing, honestly. And I'm not gonna lie to you, the growth they both have by the end of the game is really sweet. You watch them both fix their relationship after they broke up before the events of the game, and as it goes, you watch Peter struggle to balance being the human spider with trying to be a good partner, both in terms of being a work partner and a romantic partner. Peter jacks it up all the time, and MJ does her fair share of messing things up too. But by the end of the game, they've both grown as people and get back together. Because what's a Spider-Man without a Mary Jane Watson by his side? As the game ends, they're in a restaurant talking about what comes next, where life has gone after the big finale Doc Ock fight, and they have a very sweet character moment, kiss, and then fade into the credits. A nice simple ending for the Spidery Man, and I simply cannot lie to you. This is where the game shines, because the game wouldn't be nearly as good if there weren't as many good character moments like this. And I'm never going to lie to you, because when you make a Spider-Man game without a lot of endearing or well-established and well-written characters, you get the extremely disappointing Miles Morales game. And since I'm legally unable to lie to you, we'll get there once I finish rambling about Spider-Man PS4. You know what's another requirement for being a good Spider-Man story? Using the long and varied rogues gallery of the phenomenal arachnid Homo sapien. And this game does it right. From Rhino, to Scorpion, to Electro, to Vulture, to the world's biggest Mets fan Kingpin, you've got some real classical Spider-Man antagonists to fight against, which helps balance out the risk of introducing a new character like Mr. Negative. And Mr. Inverted Color Scheme was a pretty cool new addition, because he has a cool aesthetic to his crimes and visuals, and was really well performed. He's pretty cool, like every other major villain in this game. A particular shout out is deserved for Dr. Otto Octavius, because his arc of going from friend to villain worked really well, because it was perfectly written, established phenomenally, and performed even better than anticipated. And lie to you I won't, so trust me when I say that they tried and failed to do this in Miles Morales. But again, we'll get there when we get there. Before I forget to mention it, I need to mention that in a game about being Spider-Man, there are forced gameplay sections where you aren't Spider-Man, and they absolutely kill the pacing of the game. I get you want to have some variety in gameplay, but it shouldn't come at the cost of murdering the pace of the game. I'm not gonna lie to you, these sections where you play as either Mary Jane or Miles Morales are stealth sections that kinda suck. But I understand why they're here. They're here because they want variety. They want to do sections where the player doesn't have to just do Spider-Man things. But it kinda sucks in execution, because in a game about being Spider-Man, why are there sections where I'm not Spider-Man? In all honesty, since I'm not gonna lie to you, I could talk a lot more about this game, like the DLC story, but I think I've talked enough about this game, and I've got to cover another game, so I'm gonna wrap this up. This game is a really, really good superhero game. It isn't perfect, but it's a very solid and enjoyable experience as a game from a casual perspective. And from that perspective, this game is a solid 8 out of 10. This game was a hero. I just couldn't see it. However, as somewhat of a completionist myself, I see it very clearly that this game is a thief! A criminal! It's a menace to the entire city! And thus I can only reasonably give this game a 7.5 out of 10. The completion reward may dull the pain of the completion process, but it doesn't take away the pain of actually doing everything. All in all, though, I can't recommend this game enough. Just stay away from the remaster, because I'm not gonna lie to you, they made Peter look like a 15-year-old instead of 24 like he should be, and don't worry, they used the remastered They used the remastered model in Miles Morales, so I simply cannot have nice things. Thanks, Insomniac. Given how good the first game was, you'd think a direct continuation of that story would be good, right? Given the success of Into the Spider-Verse, you'd think a solo video game adventure from Miles Morales would be good, especially when it's made by Insomniac. This said, the game, on a technical level, is fine. As a video game, it is, in fact, very playable. But as a Spider-Man game, it's incredibly sad and disappointing, which sucks because it did so much good, and made so many improvements to the gameplay at the cost of sacrificing all of the story and character quality from the first game. Let's just get the 3 good things this game does out of the way. The web swinging is really, really good in this game, and the increased amount of tricks you can do while swinging through New York makes me want to play a Tony Hawk game. The mechanics are super smooth, and when you launch yourself in a way that's more satisfying than the first game, it feels like a genuine improvement. The stealth combat was definitely improved, as you can now do a much wider variety of takedowns. In the first game, you can only do web strikes, melee takedowns, and perch takedowns. But here, you can do web strikes, perch takedowns, wall takedowns, ceiling takedowns, melee takedowns, and they're a lot smoother here. It's a small change, but a necessary quality of life improvement. Speaking of, they made it so you can stealthily take down an entire base and be done with it. No more waves, just pure stealth. You can still go in loud and chaotically, of course, but I prefer the stealth method. The voice actors all do a good job in their performances, even if the writing isn't the greatest. In a somewhat gray area, there are a lot less collectibles to get, which is somewhat nice, but there really aren't enough to be satisfied. It really wouldn't take you more than an hour or 2 to get everything, which is pretty sad, all things considered. Overall, this game feels like glorified DLC. It's far too short for its own good, and the improvements don't outweigh the absolute dumpster fire that is the rest of the game. A core part of any Spider-Man game are the villains, and when your Spider-Man game doesn't have any interesting villains, you've absolutely failed at something that should come naturally. The main villain of this game is a character called the Tinkerer. Dumb name, but excusable. And a reveal halfway through the game tells you that the Tinkerer is one of Miles' childhood friends who decided to become a domestic terrorist as a means of getting back at the company that caused her brother's death. I, in concept, would call her a villain, or at least they wanted you to think she's a villain. However, I would rather call her a domestic terrorist because she doesn't do any villainous acts. She just commits actual terrorism, like blowing up a bridge with thousands of innocent civilians on it, all in a desperate attempt to steal something from the company that killed her brother. Except, not really, she actually caused her brother's death and blames the company for it instead. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. She also almost blows up the entirety of Harlem because she believes that Miles is lying to her because he didn't tell her that he's the new Spider-Man. You know, the incredibly obvious thing that you would keep secret for extremely obvious reasons? Look, the first game pulled off the friend to villain transition phenomenally, but this game introduces her, she's acting weird, and then, like 2 scenes later, you find out she's the big bad of the game. Wow, what compelling storytelling! She makes everything about her, and she refuses to take any responsibility for her actions, blaming everything on everyone else. She gaslights Miles into thinking he's the bad guy for trying to stop her. In a cutscene, she has the balls to call herself a vigilante, like she's Batman and not a domestic terrorist. Like, ma'am, you aren't taking the law into your own hands to do good for the world. You're blowing things up because you're mad that you caused your brother to die on the job. You've cost the city hundreds of millions of dollars in your futile attempts to destroy a company, and then when you try to blow up their HQ, you almost blow up all of Harlem because you refuse to listen to Miles as he tells you exactly what happens when you try to. She's an extremely irredeemable character that I feel nothing but anger against. But no, I'm supposed to feel sympathy for her when she sacrifices herself at the end of the game in a shot that's just straight up the ending of the Iron Giant. And you know what? If I had $1 for every time a deeply shitty superhero media released this decade used the Iron Giant death scene, I'd have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot more than it should be. On top of that, everything that should work just doesn't. There are only 2 good suits in this game, the Spider-Verse suit and the Bodega Cat suit. One is just the animated Spider-Man suit from Spider-Verse, and the other gives Miles a hoodie and a backpack with a cat in it. The cat's name is Spider-Man, and he's got a little Spider-Man mask on. He pops out of the backpack every once in a while, and he's adorable. 11 out of 10, best suit by default. And only having 2 good suits in a Spider-Man game is a crime. The story sucks, the characters suck, everything here just sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before. This game is just a glorified DLC. They could have released this as an add-on to the first game and I would have excused a lot of the issues here. But since this is a full-priced standalone title, it will be judged as one. Which is why my final rating for this game is a deeply unsatisfactory 2 out of 10. I wanted to like this game. I really did. And while there are some good things in it, those are too far and few to make up for the overwhelming amount of critical problems here. And if I ignore the story and main villain, I'd still only give this game a 4 out of 10, because it's too short for its own good and doesn't do anything worth the time or cost. I really wanted to like this game. I loved the first one, but this game is just not it. It had potential, and I just wish they lived up to it. But maybe that's an artistic choice. Considering that this game has to live up to the expectations of the first, it tries so hard to break out of the shell of its predecessor, and it falls horribly flat, which is a shame. It really is. But at least they set up for Spider-Man 2, which will likely have Venom and probably the Lizard, so that's nice. And maybe, just maybe they'll throw in a Green Goblin, but I can only hope. And I'm not going to lie to you, I think they'll do good with that game. It wouldn't be hard to do better than this, but I really hope that they manage to do as good of a job, if not better, than Spider-Man, the first one. Well, there you have it. 2 Spider-Man games, somewhat vaguely reviewed. I hope this clarified absolutely nothing and was at least mildly entertaining. Anyways, my name is Lego Glazed Ham, and thank you for listening all the way through this incoherent mess. It really means a lot. Thanks again, and good night.